Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Life from the Inside Out. And I'm your host, Dan Winkle, and we are here with Serge, and we're going to be doing another episode. I'm super excited. Last time we answered a question about governments, and Kris talked a lot about how our governments relate to our mindset and really reflect our collective mindset. And as part of that, we made some parallels between the way governments work as well as parenting, and how these different ideas are scaled, different, but they work in kind of similar ways. And it was really interesting. So I wonder if we'll build on that and maybe a little bit more about the mindset mastery. I think that's been a really interesting topic for a lot of viewers.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good idea. And we're all ready to go.
All right. All right. Thanks, Serge.
Now we trust that you are comfortable, and we thank you for your consideration.
Yes, Kris, thank you.
Indeed. Please feel free to proceed.
Well, I think, yeah, Joseph and I were talking earlier, and I think this idea of mindset mastery really kind of begs to continue to build on that. So I don't know if you have any more for us with that particular topic. Should I even ask?
The main point is be careful what you ask for. So let us just look at two different examples. So a scarcity mindset, where scarcity becomes the main representation for that individual's life. They might be bogged down with particular kinds of beliefs and behavior patterns that lead them to always have need, even for basic things in life, because they are convinced perhaps they do not deserve to have a better lifestyle. Perhaps they deserve they are unlovable. Perhaps they even believe that perhaps there is very little in the world that they can enjoy. And there are probably dozens and dozens of related examples. So their lives would then begin to reflect the particular mindset they adhere to. So these are beliefs which generate behaviors and all the accompanying feelings and emotions, and the use of the imagination in that way. That would also include anticipatory anxiety, anticipating the worst possible outcome, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, as if somehow or other they simply do not deserve to have any better level of existence. Now, on the other end of that spectrum, you may have what we refer to as fulfillment mindset. In between the two would be something that is familiar to people for perhaps the last 50, 60, 70, 80 years or more, what people call positive thinking. As if somehow, when you encounter a difficult situation, instead of looking for the blind spots where you are going to be hit with the worst possible outcome, you begin to actually concentrate upon having a positive outcome. But over and above that, at another stage above positive thinking, is fulfillment thinking or fulfillment mindset, which incorporates the latter, meaning positive thinking, but takes it up several notches where you not only seek to fill your life with all the things you never had before, thinking that this will positively bring you joy and happiness, but that instead you develop a deeper sense of fulfillment just by being who you are, which is a completely different level of experience, which includes the notion that you are worthy of love, that you're worthy of life. Fulfillment is often exactly what people need instead of running around looking for all kinds of things that they believe will make them happy, which often means that within a short amount of time, they will, like a butterfly, seek the next flower for its nectar, seeking the next flower again. Because there cannot be a great amount of fulfillment and satisfaction until you reach that stage wherein the fulfillment of self becomes the active principle in your life. So it involves, of course, transforming many, many aspects of the mind, literally renovating and perhaps even completely restoring certain aspects and attitudes and expectations that have never been allowed to take place. Because if you expect the worst possible outcome, even love will become suspect. It might even be considered dangerous because if you love, then you will be dropped. You will be unloved at a certain point. Whereas a fulfillment mindset, a fulfillment mentality incorporates the most basic needs of the self in terms of love, creativity, and collaboration. This works together to create literally a different picture of the world. And that is significant because it means that you are going to be tapping into your innate resources, your innate skills and tools, again, related to love, creativity, and collaboration, to then design a completely different experience of reality. And we have to point out, designing a different experience of reality does not mean that reality itself will then be redesigned. It means that your reality, your perceptions, your attitudes, your expectations are going to be transformed so that your experience of life is different. It has nothing to do with the world, but has to do with yourself. Because there is nobody more important in your life than you. Even though that may make some people squirm in their seat because they are not accustomed to being considered the driving principle of their life, the driving influence, that they are the influencer, not some guy on YouTube or TikTok. You are the influencer of your life because your life is truly what you make it to be. So that also is very significant. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, this all makes a lot of sense. And when you were talking about positive thinking and fulfillment thinking being the next level, I know in my observations, when I'm watching a lot of people exploring either new age material, something like that, within positive thinking, there can be an element of denial if there's a challenge. Whereas in fulfillment thinking, I think there's a next level of, you realize that within the challenge is the fulfillment.
Indeed, you would not have created the challenge if you did not sense that working your way through working your way through the challenge, you will find fulfillment. You have set up the challenge to do just that, to allow it to blossom. So it is indeed a completely different set of interior design, if you like. So in interior design, you have someone come into your house. They may suggest repainting the room or the entire house, moving some furniture, getting new furniture, and so on and so forth. All of these items, the furniture, the house itself, are all symbolic of particular elements in the mind. Now, this may satisfy you for some time until suddenly you're bored with that and then you need a new one. But in terms of the mind, all of these inner symbols can also be redesigned, but to work in your favor. So it eliminates the need for self-sabotaging behavior, because you would recognize it for what it is, as a coping mechanism that keeps instilling in you that perhaps you're not worthy of this job or this relationship or this situation or that other situation. Because self-sabotaging behavior reflects those kinds of situations, your unworthiness. And it is not something that someone has instilled in you. You made certain observations and conclusions about specific things. So, for instance, when children go through life wherein their parents might divorce, and sometimes it is not a nice divorce, there is infighting, and everyone suffers. Often the child may think somehow or other they may have done things that accelerated a situation or even caused it, that they might be the cause, perhaps through some actions of their own or words. It may seem innocent enough, and everyone thinks, well, they will grow out of it. But they may suddenly begin to realize as they grow older that they themselves are having trouble maintaining relationships, not just with others, but they do not have a healthy relationship with their own self. They may put themselves down in many, many different ways. They experience anxiety and inner conflict because that situation has not been resolved. They may still see themselves as unworthy of parental love. Does that make some sense to you?
Yeah. And I know for some folks too, that sometimes, that particular mindset, I think if it sticks with them through adulthood, it plays out in different ways. That I think too, when you can follow the idea, you can kind of trace it back to something like that as well. But it'll have different forms.
Indeed, it will manifest in a form that is particular to the individual. Even though it might resemble many other people's behavior, it is still unique. The circumstances are different. And positive thinking can assist to some degree, but it would be very difficult for an individual to try and convince themselves that in spite of all of their self-directed or internalized anxieties, they can be positive about themselves. Whilst fulfillment thinking overrides that. It embraces positive thinking, but it also works at rooting out the various causes, plus helping you fix it, which is an entirely different ballgame. It is not just about trying to be positive all the time, which is difficult for many people, but it is about working at the root cause, fixing it, and then building a completely different vision of oneself. Because now you're not just thinking about thinking happy thoughts. You're going to make a happier situation. Your quality of life depends on the kinds of thought patterns that you entertain. And in this way, you can create thought patterns that relate directly to your happiness and fulfillment. And that, again, is a different ballgame. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, I follow you. And I'm trying to make my own. I know there's a technique. It seems related that if you kind of fake it till you make it, if you want to build a new mindset of kind of just sort of embodying that, even if it might, I think that's trying to describe that might feel foreign at first, so it feels a little
Indeed,
fake,
would.
but eventually it starts feeling, it becomes the new norm.
Indeed. And there are a few requirements. There is no escaping the fact that this requires commitment. It is not something that will happen miraculously after watching a YouTube video for 5 minutes, or meditating for 5 minutes, or clicking your heels 3 times and wishing for a better outcome. It requires dedication and commitment, because it involves literally transforming your life from the inside out. Do forgive us for the little advertisement.
It fits. It fits. It was good.
So it is significant because the outcome will also be significant. And again, wishful thinking, which unfortunately is often incorporated into many New Age ideas, including conscious creation, just doesn't cut it.
Well, I think that's a key distinction you just made in the language, the difference between wishful thinking and positive thinking. I think there's a difference there.
Indeed. You simply will not derive many, many benefits if it is only wishful thinking that will last for a short amount of time. And then you will get disappointed because your quote unquote wishes don't come about, because you still have too much baggage. So you cannot take flight. You have wishes, but you also have too many things that weigh you down. So you can't take off with them. It appears that for the moment there is a little bit of a silver lining, but then the clouds move in again. So it hides the lining. Wishful thinking may sometimes set or sow the seeds, but you can't just throw a seed somewhere in a rocky road and expect that the most beautiful flower will rise from the ground or some fruit. It needs to be tended to. It needs to have sufficient sunlight, warmth, air, and water. So tossing a seed here and there may produce something, but it may not produce what you expect. So with fulfillment thinking and fulfillment mindset, it is actually very precise. What you are sowing is going to produce something magnificent, but you must still stay the course, just like the farmer. He doesn't just throw wheat seeds or corn seeds and walk away from the field. He tends to it, removes weeds, makes certain that it is well watered, receives sunshine, and so on and so forth. He spends time, he dedicates his time, his resources, and his energies. And fulfillment mindset requires the same. It requires attention, mindfulness, and more.
Yeah, I got it. That throwing the seeds out into the field and just wishing that they grow as you do nothing to tend to them wouldn't work.
Indeed. And you also have to make certain it is the right kind of soil. You cannot simply walk through the Sahara Desert, throwing some seeds over your shoulder and thinking, oh, yes, well, we'll get some nice tomatoes and some apple trees and some bananas and all sorts of different things. That will not happen.
Yeah, well, thanks, Kris. I know we're getting close to a break time. Do we have any final
Indeed.
thoughts for this episode, or we could build on that next time?
One of the main components of mindset fact mastery and fulfillment thinking or fulfillment mastery is mindfulness. Mindfulness requires your attention, requires your dedication. You need to tend to yourself the same way you might tend to your child, because you want your child to be the best possible human being they can be. You want yourself to also be the best possible human being you can be, not according to the dictates of others, but according to your own deepermost sense of yourself. So that requires being mindful of your words, your thoughts, your feelings, your expectations, your emotions, and more. It is a package deal.
Right.
So with that, we thank you for your consideration and return Joseph.
Thanks, Kris.